The essence of basketball. I don't know if you can be a basketball player without experience.
Ball Radio.
Ball Radio, another episode. And what the theme today is the Olympics, not the winter because there's no basketball there. We talking about the Summer Olympics in Paris, France. Oui. My name is Bobbito Garcia, aka Cool Bob Love. I'm joined by my illustrious co-host / co-producer of Untouchable Creative. His name is
E-New Eric Newman, and it is summertime on B-Ball Radio. Summertime. I'm so glad we're doing this. I'm so glad we're doing this. So glad we're doing this.
Yeah, man. Well, listen, as a child, I'll be honest with you. At one point, my friend Daryl Roberts, amazing buddy, was like, "Yo, Bob, let's train for the Olympics." And I was like, "What?" He was like, I was like 14 years old. He was like, "Yo, we could do it." And we were doing like 200 toe raises and 100 push-ups every day. And we like really thought we were going to like be in the Olympics one day. But, it's when you're watching it as a kid and you see all those emotional stories and, Wild World of Sports and the recaps and the news and the highlights, you get like a thrill. And, I'm sure that's still the same for young people today. Now I'm in my late 50s. I'm not trying to be in the Olympics, but do you have memories, Eric, of maybe aspiring to be in the Olympics at one point, or did you just know that you were an undersized small forward at age 9 and it was not in your plans?
Well, what was so interesting, Bob, is, and obviously we're going to talk a lot about the impact of the original Dream Team today. So that for me is when
can't avoid that, right?
Yeah. Going from 8th to 9th grade. So before that, it was always like, okay, like the Olympics mean something. Basketball obviously means something, but it didn't have the same cachet and the same importance because there were no NBA guys, right? And, in 92, I turned 14. In 88, I was 10. I remember a little of that. And then Jordan in 84, you don't remember that because the coverage wasn't the same.
Well, I do, but you don't.
Yeah. But so my point is, I remember the excitement around the rule change and then the assembly of the team. And then obviously being, huge Bird, Magic, Mike, and then seeing how the rest of the team was formed. That was a big deal. And then, of course, when the merch dropped and the Dream Team jerseys and the shorts and all that and the posters, like I had the team poster on the back of my door. It fit in with the rest of the basketball and sports madness in my childhood room. And then, of course, it was like, okay, who's getting the Jordan jersey? Who's getting the Bird? Who's getting the Magic? The Knick fans would get the Ewing. And that was a huge deal back then. And it really raised the bar in a lot of ways. But for you, obviously you being senior to me, what was it like for you, like watching Mike in 84? And then I believe in 88, the Team USA did not do very well and lost, which prompted the creation of the first Dream Team. What do you remember about that time and how it all came together?
Well, Eric, I'm going to go even further back. I'm born in 1966. And so in 1972, Russia or the USSR and the U.S. squad met in the final for the Olympics. And there was a whole discrepancy about how that game ended. Yep. And, it's still talked about to this day. I was 6 years old at the time and I wasn't, basketball fever, like this is my whole livelihood. So it kind of like skipped through and, was just kind of like passing amongst, the hurdles and the sprints and all that other stuff. In 76, now that was pretty monumental for me because the national team of Puerto Rico, mi patria, where both my parents were born. And, for those who don't know, the island is a colony of the United States, even though the United Nations has deemed colonialism as illegal internationally. The U.S. still calls Puerto Rico a commonwealth, but it's just another term. But the international community recognizes it as a nation because of our customs, our history, our culture, our people, the makeup, the genetics. And so we're able to, even though we're a colony of the United States, we're able to participate in international competition as our own nation, right? Which is really beautiful because we're only an island of 4 million and even less nowadays. But throughout the diaspora, we have, 10 million Puerto Ricans around the world. And in 76, the starting guards were Neftali Rivera from New York and Butch Lee, specifically from Harlem, who cut his teeth playing pickup at the Rucker and saw Joe Hammond play as a kid and, won a PSAL championship for Clinton High School, was the MVP, went on to win the first championship for Coach Al McGuire at Marquette in his illustrious career. In 1977, he was the MVP of that as well. He went on to win an NBA ring with Magic Johnson as a teammate for the Lakers in 1980. He's the first Latino ever in the league. In 1976, he gets cut from the USA squad and goes to play for Puerto Rico with a vengeance. Neftali Rivera, I think, had 35 that game. They lose by 1 point to the U.S., to the mighty U.S. Now, let's go back to 72. The U.S. has this discrepancy. It's a 1 point victory, right? 76, the U.S. loses by 1 point to Puerto Rico, showing vulnerability. 1980, the U.S. decides for political reasons to not go to the Olympics. Then we skip to 84. It's basically a dream team. Michael Jordan, Chris Mullin, Pat Ewing. I mean, the squad is bananas, yo. Jordan is wearing Converse, the fast break mids on the hardwood. And then 1988 rolls along. Danny Manning, who, Eric, can you tell our audience who he was?
Danny Manning, University of Kansas, Rock Chalk Jayhawk, taking Kansas to the title in 1988.
Right.
I'll go back to the 84 roster in a moment, but finish your thought.
Okay, so anyway, so in 88, Danny Manning's that dude. I think Steve Alford is on the squad as well from Indiana, who went to the NCAA final.
Well, Alford's on the 84 squad. So to close the loop on
Alford, no way Alford was on the 84 squad. No way.
Right, yeah, he's
really?
drafted in 87.
Steve Alford.
Because Bobby Knight's the coach, so he puts him on the team.
Ah, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
But you forgot two incredible New York names for 84. Your man Vern Fleming.
Oh yes, University of Georgia, who plays for Indiana Pacers.
Yes, and Sam Perkins.
Sam Perkins plays at UNC.
Yes.
I don't even think of him as a New York player, but yes, he's from New York, I guess.
And Alvin Robertson, the late Wayman Tisdale on the team.
Wayman Tisdale from Oklahoma, yes.
And then, product of the time, John Koncak, Joe Klein, Jeff Turner, but the man who was left off the team famously, because Bob Knight didn't deem him in shape, is Charles Barkley.
Yes.
Obviously should have been on the team.
Right. Well, Wayman Tisdale was a monster that year for Oklahoma. But in any event, so 88, this is the prelude to the 92 Olympics, is that the 88 squad doesn't win a gold medal for the first time in Olympic history other than 1980. And, the Olympics starts in 1936 in Berlin. That's the first time the sport is introduced there, and it's played outdoors of all things. I love outdoor basketball. You know that. The park is my church. So 88, led by Danny Manning, NCAA champ, they don't win, and so all of a sudden, feathers are ruffled in the States, and they're like, "Yo, we gotta make a decision," and and that's the decision that was made to include, NBA players on the national team. Mind you, every other country in the world that participated in the Olympics had pro players on their squad. It was always college teenagers playing against grown-ass men who did this for a living. And I know that because when I played in Puerto Rico in 1987, every national team member was in the league. Munch Cruz, Angelo Cruz. We don't even know if he's passed. He's been missing for decades. Let's assume that he passed, but rest in peace if he did. But and 88 wasn't the only loss, Eric. In Pan Am games and the World University games, Puerto Rico is beating the U.S. prior to 92 like 2 or 3 times. And so it's not just the 88 Olympics that leads up to the decision to make the dream team, but I'm imagining when you were a youth seeing the dream team be assembled, it must have been like the Avengers.
Oh, it was unbelievable. I mean, my NBA fanaticism really started late 80s into early 90s. So for that to happen while also just being a sponge for history. So if there was a book in my school library or town library about basketball or Olympic basketball, the NBA, I'm opening it. And something I just looked up, before 72, USA had never lost an Olympic basketball game, right? So for those of you that don't know the story about 72, there is a doc on it. Doug Collins speaks on it. Basically, it's home cooking. They replay the end of the game, and USSR scores on this ridiculous picture, a Hail Mary, like the Grand Hill pass to Christian Laettner, but like in traffic, defender falls down, puts the shot in after the game should have been over already, and obviously 72, very polarizing with what happened with the hostages in Munich, and obviously the Cold War continuing. And then, so in 76, Bob,
that's great context, Eric.
Yeah, thank you. So in 76, I just want to make sure we got this right. Do we win it in 76?
Yes.
We do win it. Okay, because I think you said okay, so it was a tight game with Puerto Rico.
No, U.S. beats Puerto Rico by 1 point, but U.S. goes on to win a gold medal in 76.
Got it.
And I think Benson was the star of that squad, who played at University of Indiana,
who was undefeated that year
in 76. Really? Okay.
Yes, with Quinn Buckner.
Yep. And Bucks and
the team that Larry Bird should have been on was that Hoosier team. Larry Bird goes to campus for a month and then goes home, and we almost never hear of him. Adrian Dantley, Walter Davis, Phil Ford, Scott May, Ernie Grunfeld, Kenny Carr.
Okay,
yeah, that's a tough team. Yes, so they beat Italy, Puerto Rico by 1, Yugoslavia a forfeit with Egypt, Czechoslovakia, Canada, Yugoslavia again. It's interesting to go back in history, and Bob, you said something that I want to just elaborate on, right? Like, you have the world starting to beat the U.S., but I don't think people really put 2 and 2 together with, like, all right, these are grown men training together to represent their country versus college players who, while very talented, have yet to even grow into their body and never play together unless they happen to play at the same school or come from the same area. And I always thought that was really interesting. And then, of course, when the dream team is put together, you have the old guard say, oh, they're too good. This isn't fun. Well, this isn't fun for who? Like, you get to watch Magic Johnson, Michael Jordan. Obviously, Larry was at the end. Magic had just left because of HIV, but came back and was still at a high level. Charles Barkley was entering the greatest phase of his career.
Absolutely.
Karl Malone entering the height of his career. We could go through the roster start to finish, but what I think people forget about too is at that time, Patrick Ewing and David Robinson were so good, but you forget about how good they were because of the guys I just named. So, whenever the comps start with, the Redeem Team in 08 or some of the other Dream Team 2 in 2000, Dream Team 2 is in 96, the 2000 team, which is also terrific when Vince jumps over Frederick Weiss, and KG
Mm-hmm.
almost knocks out Vince because he's so excited. Like, great teams, but I
Yeah.
think people are forgetting just how not incredible the talent was on the Dream Team, the timing of where most of those guys were in their career.
Mm-hmm.
So to bring it back to your question, in 8th grade, I mean, we're all losing our minds about this,
Right.
and I forgot to say Scottie Pippen and Clyde Drexler and John Stockton and Chris Mullin,
Yeah.
and then Christian Laettner, one of the 10, if not 5 greatest college players we've ever seen.
Right.
So it
Right.
was it was unbelievable.
Yeah.
It was unbelievable. What's your first memory of, like, all right, they're on TV, like, now you're watching this thing come together? What do you remember about that?
You may not be surprised to hear this, but I was actually vehemently opposed to the idea of the Dream Team, and I
Hmm.
and I even wrote about it in a couple of hip hop publications. And the reason why was because I felt the decision was made based on patriotism and commerce, not in the spirit of the game, the essence, and the culture. Now, looking back in retrospect, I am acutely aware how the Dream Team affected the rest of the world. Basketball, particularly outdoors, in the 3-on-3 context, exploded in Europe after Barcelona in '92. That's unequivocal fact. I can tell you, I can't tell you how many times I've been overseas, started talking to somebody, and be like, "Yo, like, how did you learn about playground basketball? How'd you get it?" And time and time again, yo, the '92 Dream Team, where like opponents were like taking photos with these dudes, like bowing to them, you know,
Yeah.
before the game. Very dissimilar to what Eddie House was saying in episode 3, where he was like, "Yo, like if you're on another squad, you're not my friend." Like,
Yeah.
most people were in awe of these dudes because they were not just legends; they were icons. But I really felt that it was sort of the U.S. in its thirst to always be, so powerful and dominant in everything, economics, politics. Yeah, let's put together, all these incredible players. But, if we take away that, the bare bones of it is truthfully, it was a fair decision. Other countries have their pro players playing on the national team. Why shouldn't the U.S.? The rest of the world is caught up, so the U.S. is now going to catch up as well. Is going to catch up as well, and it did well for the sport, and for that reason and that reason alone, I am an advocate of participation. How you say that word?
Par-
Participation.
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 Participatory.
Participatory participation.
We are participating in this podcast.
Yes, participating in the park pickup player perspective. So Eric, I didn't watch any games. I can't tell you any memories.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I know that they were blowing out squads by like 20, 30, 40 points. But now in 2024, I'm glad the decision was made, and even more so because in 2004, Puerto Rico doesn't lose to the U.S. by 1 point. We actually spank a squad that featured Carmelo Anthony, LeBron James, Allen Iverson, Stephon Marbury, I believe Carlos Boozer, Tim Duncan. This wasn't a college squad. This was a squad of pros and future Hall of Famers, and PR beat them by 19 points. It was the largest margin of defeat in U.S. history, Dream Team or not, in international competition, Olympics or not, led by Carlos Arroyo. And so for that moment to happen and have the resonance that it did, it goes back to '92 and being like, hey, we're going to take NBA All Stars and put them on the squad, and then it makes Puerto Rico beating, it's like David and Goliath that much even more wilder of a dream, and that's my all-time Olympic, highlight is my an island of 4 million people beating a country of 315 million. It's insane to think about still to this day. And Arroyo is a god, in the annals of Olympic sports as well as Baloncesto Boricua. So, but anyway,
Yeah. Well,
I
thank
kind of I
goodness.
kind of veered off the
Thank.
point. Okay, Eric, you said we're going to talk about Olympics for 5 to 7
I was.
minutes. I'm
I
like,
was.
and I'm
Yeah.
like, no way, dude, no.
Well, what is sparking me now is thank goodness that happened. Like if that doesn't happen in 2004, like Team USA doesn't take the step back and needs to say, okay, we got to make some changes here. It leads to
Mhm.
Krzyzewski, it leads to Colangelo, it leads to the
Mm,
Redeem team.
mm.
And I've got so many things going through my mind right now
Wait,
that I haven't
Colangelo
thought of.
was you talking about the Chicago Bulls executive who heads up
No, not the Bulls. Wasn't he
Jerry
Jerry
Colangelo?
Colangelo? He built Phoenix back in the
Phoenix
day.
Suns. Okay, right, right,
Yeah,
right. But I
yeah,
think
yeah.
Colangelo has something to do with the Bulls earlier in his career, if I'm not
He might have.
mistaken.
Yeah, yeah. He
Yeah,
might have. He might
yeah.
have. Yeah. But
But
point
but
being, they
Coach K from Duke,
overhaul.
Coach K from Duke
They
winds up becoming the national team coach instead of Larry
yes,
Brown, who
yes.
winds up winning a NBA chip as well with
Well,
Detroit, I
won a
believe.
chip that year in '04 with
Okay,
Detroit. So
okay,
he
that's
goes
what it
from
was.
winning the chip, and then that summer, just that team was, I mean, hats off to Puerto Rico, right? But that team was not put together, in my opinion, the right way. It just felt like, let's put as many all-stars on this team as possible and we'll figure it out. And it wasn't like a true system around things. And I think it forced USA basketball to look at how they were going about
Mm,
the organization, putting the team together. Obviously, you don't force some of the greatest players in the world into a system, but they had to have some sort of structure set up. And I think that's what then happened. And, by '08, you and I had already met.
yep.
You had gotten to know me a bit. You knew I was, coaching and I'm in the Nike world and I'm doing the clinics. And you also knew my interest in the creative. And the summer of '08 is when they had the commitment gallery set up in Harlem. I can't remember the
Oh
name of
yeah,
the sneaker store they took
yeah.
over,
The
but
Vault.
I was
It was
I
on
was
Eighth
in that.
Avenue on 133rd Street.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So that was one of my first like Nike basketball big cultural things I was involved in. Obviously, I was on the China trip back in
Hmm.
'06, which
Hmm.
started everything, which is what eventually led me to meet you.
Yep.
But '08, that was one of the great memories of the basketball ride I was on in New York through culture and brand and clinics. And we had young people coming through the space. And there's a photo somewhere. This is when we were all using like Blackberries and the camera was terrible. But there's a photo I have to dig it up. And it's in that space. And they created a United States flag from red, white, and blue hyperdunks. And
Hmm.
it was like 300 sneakers or whatever up on the
Hmm.
wall.
Hmm.
And, they had the jerseys and the history of USA basketball. And then just one of my favorite memories of this incredible community that we were a part of in different ways in New York is we're all in that space watching the gold medal game at, I think tip off was 2 a.m. Eastern.
Hmm.
And we probably all rolled out of there at like 5 and went for
Hmm.
breakfast. Like it was such a great memory and kind of like this celebration of, USA basketball has returned. We did this really cool cultural thing there. I remember Team USA did a mock workout press event at Radio City on where the ice rink sits in the winter.
Word.
Because, yeah, our old friend PR was Paul Rivera, not Puerto Rico. Paul Rivera was very hands-on with that. And my
Mhm.
parents just happened to be coming to the city that weekend when they would come in and see a show or a museum, whatever. I'm like, oh, you got to meet me here. and
Yeah.
we were kind of like behind the scenes seeing it. And I
Nice.
felt so important that I could take my parents behind the scenes to be 5 feet
Nice.
away from Coach K. But that was very memorable. And then of course the comps start with, oh well, Kobe and LeBron, and this is the summer after Kobe loses to the Celtics in a very polarizing way in game 6. And we've of course heard all the Kobe stories where, he comes in and he tells Coach K, put me on the best guy on the other team. And then the story about him running through Pau Gasol's chest the first time he goes to set a screen to send a message. So incredible stories there and incredible lineage. But, just back to 92, the excitement around that. And the other thing that I think is important to call out is, for kids like me, I had never seen Drazen Petrovic. I saw him coming off the bench for the Portland Trailblazers and playing spot minutes before he ends up in New Jersey. But I never saw Drazen ball like that. And it was the introduction to Tony Kukoc and to Dino Raja and to some really incredible international players. Now, what I think a lot of people may not remember, and I'm sure you do, is in the late 80s,
Oscar Schmidt.
Oscar Schmidt, obviously. But what I was going to say is the Celtics, the Lakers, I believe the Bulls did as well, would play an exhibition game or two internationally against teams from over there. The Celtics definitely did. The Lakers definitely did, because Stern already was seeing how to globalize the game and knew he only had so much time left with Magic and Larry to do it. There are some fun highlights that I've seen before where it's like old Larry still doing everything that, he would do back in the day, but against those guys, which at the time was lesser competition. But my point is the appetite for NBA basketball and the way the U.S. did it was already there internationally. Team USA just put it over the top. But to then see, sorry for being so long-winded, to then see the domino effect and to see how good Drazen was before his tragic passing, to see how good Tony Kukoc was. Dino Raja was a very good player. Like there was, and then obviously Marciulionis and Sabonis and the whole Lithuania squad. It opened the floodgates. And now you fast forward to today, and if you broke down the 450 in the NBA right now in terms of their origins, it's crazy how many international guys you have in the league. By the way, in the best of ways, it's so good for the game. And the Dream Team is
we can
really
look at the Dream Team as a root cause of that.
Yes, absolutely.
That's unequivocal fact. So I just want to take a second to mention Oscar Schmidt, who played for Argentina, and was offered an NBA contract. I think at the time, it meant that he couldn't play for Brazil. I'm sorry, not Argentina. He played for Brazil. I'm bugging.
Brazil.
And it meant that he couldn't play for Brazil. And so he turned it down, if I remember correctly. I mean, this is a dude that was dropping numbers. We're not talking about like he had 20 or 22. No, this dude was dropping like 35, 40, 45, 50 against international competition, including Team USA's. This dude was like bananas, in shape, tall, shoots, moves. And I remember seeing him play, and it was magical. I think it was in the 84 Olympics. I was like, yo, who is this dude? Why isn't he playing in the league? But props to him, his playing for his nation, and pride of that meant more to him. If I'm getting that story correct, I don't recall, succinctly why he didn't play in the NBA and why he turned it down. But yeah, super legend of Olympics that we have to include in this conversation, Oscar Schmidt. Yeah. Now moving forward, Eric, we're now in 2024.
We're off the hot tub time machine. We're off the DeLorean. We're back. We're back in the present.
Well, I don't have much to say about 2012, or 2016, or 2020. I don't remember it.
Sure.
And so
it kind of blends together. But yes,
but
ground us in 24, my friend.
Yeah. So in 2024, I'm excited that the men's and women's team of Puerto Rico have both qualified, I believe, for the first time in Olympic history. And this is also the first return for the PR men's team since 2004 when we spanked the U.S. So, what has you excited about this 2024 edition?
Well, as we record this on July 23rd, I mean, the exhibitions have happened. I was actually, I had one of my favorite things to do randomly is cook a quick dinner with the game on my phone, like right there. So I
Nice.
had US versus Germany on. And, it's interesting. I was just thinking about one thing that Eddie House was talking about the G Unit runs, where you could really show all the ingredients of your game if you're an NBA role player
Mm-hmm.
versus doing that in a game. And I'm watching Team USA last night, and I'm watching just, the flow of the game, and LeBron's blocking shots. And then this sequence happens where, LeBron blocks a shot, Tatum picks up the loose ball, leads the break, goes down the floor, switches hands, finishes with his left. 2 minutes later, Embiid pins a shot. It ends up with Ann Edwards crossover, open court, and a Jordan-like move and one-hand dunk. And I'm just like in awe of all the talent on the floor at once. And at the same time, you've got guys on Germany, whether it's Tice, whether it's the Wagner brothers, like these are legit NBA rotation guys, right?
Mm-hmm.
Who are now out there trying to be the stars on their team representing their country. So like
Mm-hmm.
a lot falls on those guys' shoulders, where in the NBA, like, yes, one of the Wagners is the second option on Orlando, where the other one
Mm-hmm.
is most definitely a role player. Daniel Tice has been a role player his whole career in the league. But now these guys are looked at as option 1, 2, and 3 playing for gold
Yeah.
against Team USA, where everyone on that team, for the most part, is an option 1 or an option 2.
Mm-hmm.
So that really interests me. And, I just love seeing how Team USA tries to adapt to international play. And to me, it speaks to uh, skill versatility. It speaks to basketball IQ, and it speaks to quickly, like, how quickly can we become a succinct team
Hmm.
and do something really special together? Because that's always been the goal for these other national teams that have played together much longer for the most part, where Team USA goes through the selection process. Obviously, you have an incredible roster of guys that are most certainly already in the Basketball Hall of Fame, and other guys who will have a chance to be in the Basketball Hall of Fame.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, it's like, okay, you have all this Team USA greatness, and then you have these other countries who have some damn good players, some of whom are in the league, some of whom are legends in their country. How do their teams come together to match up with the team that Team USA has built? And that excites me a lot. And then, of course, with the continued rise of women's basketball, and I mean, it's so historic what Puerto Rico has done, having men and women in the same thing, in the same Olympics. Like, I'm really looking forward to both the men's and the women's, and seeing how this all plays out. And I love the fact that the WNBA is taking a pause for the Olympics. I think
Yeah.
that's so smart and so strategic.
Yep.
And I'm excited. I'm really excited to watch it all.
Yep. I think the U.S. national team is going to be a joy to watch on the women's side with Asia Wilson, and I looked at the 2020 squad, and Caitlin Clark wasn't even a starter on the
Right.
women's on the women's national team, which is like, wait, what? Like, and obviously she did all right since then. Um, but talking about role players, right? Jose Alvarado, who's on the New Orleans Pelicans, off the bench.
Mm-hmm.
One of the reasons why Puerto Rico qualified is because he dropped 29 I don't know if it was against Mexico or I forget which squad it was, but he dropped 29 and shot like 7 for 10 from three in that game to push PR to the W. And also on that squad is former LSU standout Tremont Waters, who a lot of people didn't know was Boricua. But in the backcourt, we got like two dudes under 6 feet that are both like, yo, these dudes are threats. These dudes are
Yes.
threats. You unleash them. You know how we do against the U.S. Remains to be seen. But as I saw South Sudan, a country doesn't have one indoor gym, lose to the U.S. by 1 point with LeBron, with Ant Edwards, and with all these huge names. Like, yo, it can happen, man. It can happen. Basketball is a sport that's not predetermined. Why do an Olympic competition if we already know that U.S. is going to win? The
Yep.
joy of it is that other teams can step up and at any point defeat the giant, the behemoth that the U.S. is. Now, Eric, I want to go back to one thing that you mentioned. And now I'm spacing on what it was because I went on my own long preamble. But
The cool Bob Love preamble only on B-Ball Radio.
Yeah. You had said da da da. I'm not, but you know what? It's instead of talking about that, I see you got a Jordan U.S. jersey.
Well, you're leading me to my next question on you, right? I got the Jordan, I got the Bird, I got the Barkley editions up there on the shelf.
Yep.
So the merch from that time, I mean, the Jordan jersey is 84, the Bird jersey is 92 Dream Team. What's your favorite drop from USA Basketball? Like, what was your favorite thing they came out with? Was it a pair of shoes? Was it the style of the jersey? The shorts? What was your favorite or most memorable drop that came out on the merch side?
I've never been like I'd rather wear like a tournament. Like right now, I'm wearing my FC21 All World 1v5 tournament T-shirt. Like I'd rather wear like a shirt that like I've played in myself more so than going to to buy something that. So yeah, I don't have anything. I don't have to. Although Nike did a pair of Team Puerto Rico shorts in 2010 when they did the World Basketball Festival at Rucker Park.
Yep.
And they put the wood floor on top of the asphalt, and they had Puerto Rico play Team Brazil, and the shorts from that, because they had like the new material that wasn't cotton, it wasn't nylon, it wasn't polyester. Those are like my favorite Nike shorts ever. So the N1 Puerto Rico shorts and the Nike Puerto Rico shorts. And I'm going to turn it back to you. So, Eric,
well,
you have some pretty incredible merchandise in the background. What was your favorite Team USA drop?
Well, thanks, Bob. I appreciate you tuning in tonight. The Rucker 2010 World Basketball Festival is going to have to be a special summer episode we do. So I just want to state that first. Oh, we have to because I have so much golden material for us to reference from that.
All right, we'll go back to
but tied to that summer, they did that was the first summer of the Hyperfuse. So they did the Hyperfuse for all the countries that came to WBF. So the Puerto Rico Hyperfuses with the flag as the logo were, I wish I still had the pair because I was getting the hookup.
Yeah.
Those were unbelievable shoes. If anybody is listening to this and they have the Puerto Rico Hyperfuses, or you remember what we're talking about,
raise them over your head and say,
put it on social and tag us because that shoe was incredible. I had the USAs were also great from that summer, but for me it's the Bird. I mean, for me it's behind me. It's that Navy, when that Bird jersey got re-released. I probably got that around 10. I don't know, 15 years ago, something like that. I've maybe worn it 5 times. That was great. But when I was a kid and getting that white champion mesh number 7 Bird Team USA jersey, I mean, that was everything. That was everything, especially because you knew like the career is over.
Yeah.
Like this is it. And this is like the last thing that is going to come out that is tied to him in his career that isn't retro, that is in the moment. So for me, it was that.
Did
It,
you
it
sell
was it was the bird.
lemonade or like do a newspaper route to raise money to to buy that jersey at age
I had
15?
to. There were certain things my parents would give in on.
Okay,
Um,
okay.
but that was one of them. I think the most dollars I made was when we would shovel snow, hit the driveways from time to time.
All right.
And, yeah, by the time I was in high school, they're like, okay, at some point you're going to need to get a job here and learn how this works.
I
So,
wish I had a
uh,
kid on my block like you. Now that I live outside of the five boroughs,
yeah,
the driveway
yeah.
shoveling is not
Oh
the move,
man.
bro.
Oh, and you don't
Not the move.
realize, like, because I was, up until I hit the weight room, I was tall and lean. You don't realize like the lean strength you're getting
Yes,
from
yes.
shoveling snow for 2 or 3 hours.
Yep, yep.
Um, but this is the Summer Olympic edition, Bob. The Summer
Right,
Olympic
right,
edition.
right. Okay, let's stay on
But
track.
no, man, great memories, and to be able to tie it to some of the work stuff we were able to be a part of was a lot of fun. And obviously not to get into anything else about our country, but sports and basketball. It is great to see how people come together around the Olympics and competition. And um, it's also a lot of fun watching guys who have competed against each other for so long play on the same team.
Yeah.
And that's really great. So, aside from Isaiah Thomas being blackballed off the first dream team, and just thinking about the other things that we left out, like MJ wearing the flag over the warm up because it wasn't a Nike warm up, right?
Mm,
Wasn't that you had all these little things that come rushing back. Charles Barkley sending a message, elbowing a player, I believe on Angola, who had no idea what the issue was. But at the time, let's also think about it this way. Like, that was a big experiment. Like,
yeah.
the odds of it working were really good, but that was a big experiment. And then of course, one of the other stories that goes down in kind of dream team lore is, they get their ass kicked by C-Webb, Hurley, and those college stars, and Chuck Daly literally stops the game and doesn't let them come back, so that
Mhm.
fire burns within them for 24 hours, and then they come back in and they wax them.
Yeah.
And I think Chuck Daly is a coach in the annals of NBA history who deserves a little bit more shine for everything he contributed to the game. And as
Mm.
big of a Celtics guy that I am, and as much as I hated the bad boy Pistons, like, you had to respect Chuck Daly. I mean, first of all, he was a total movie character. He came across as a mob boss coaching the bad boys. It was like perfect casting. But he was perfect for that dream team. And I think a lot of
Indeed.
people at the time were like, well, why not Riley? But Chuck Daly was great for that. Rest in peace. And
Yeah.
some great memories there. So yeah, this 7-minute episode has now gone 44 minutes. But this is the stuff that we talk about, that we want to really dive into on the show, and don't
Yep.
necessarily need an epic guest to do so. So
No doubt.
great to do this Olympic primer with you, my man.
There
Good
it
stuff.
is.
Good stuff.
B-Ball Radio.
Summertime edition.
Yes.
Summertime edition.
We need to thank our illustrious social media team, Amanda Benavente, Deja Carr, our illustrious editor, Robert Brooks. We want
Bobby
to thank
Brooks.
Apple and Art19, YouTube for their support. And find us on all platforms, wherever you listen and find your podcast. All right. Eric, we're going to talk soon. Peace, everybody. Ball Radio.